Greetings to one and all listening. Radio Club has come up with a podcast series dubbed as DAICT Crossroads. So, the first and the foremost question: where did your love for movies come from? Did it happen at any particular time, or has it just been with you ever since you were a child?
So I have been writing for quite some time. Even in my school days, I used to write something, not particularly about film, but something or the other, creative writing, English, and everything. But I realized, writing about film and cinema once I joined DA, and yeah, so all that started in my first semester.
Okay, so could you tell us about a few of your other hobbies apart from movies, and how do you manage time? That's one question I have because you already have so much workload, and then reviewing movies it takes time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So apart from movies, I mean watching and writing and everything, so I'm interested in chess. So a lot of my time in DA hostels would go around in playing chess, or I'm reading books, fiction, non-fiction. Actually, reading fiction is I like doing that because that also helps me in reviewing films. It gives a different perspective to things. So yeah, I would say playing chess, reading, and a little bit of socializing. Yeah.
But how are you able to manage time? I mean, given the academic.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. About time management, I would say so. Initially, my priorities, I would always keep writing as a second option. I would always allot more time to academics or other responsibilities, like our SBG committees and everything. But then slowly, I developed my interest. So this I had to prioritize things. I had to maybe delay some assignments so that I could finish my reviews or finish an article that I have to give to a publication. So slowly I can say that I tried improving the way I was running things. I would maintain a calendar. I would maintain separate Notion files to keep track of how things are. So I think it all eventually comes down to effective time management. You cannot have best of both worlds, I would say, but yeah, you can try.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, one really has to manage time. And okay, I have one question. I went through your blog on the Cinephile yesterday. Would you like to share something about it with the viewers and the listeners?
Mhm. So on the Cinefront is basically my, I would say, I wanted to bring all my content on a single platform. So otherwise, I had occasionally written on Medium and I was writing for other sites. So, but I just wanted everything to come together at one place and where readers could immerse themselves in different sections, different ways of communicating about film and cinema. So I thought, why not start a blog and everything can come at one place. So apart from writing articles, I have also written a couple of screenplays. I have some miscellaneous section on the site that contains all the articles that are not directly related to film, but something here or there, or maybe something I did for, let's say, Radio Club, then that falls under that section. So with On the Cinefront, my goal is basically that everything comes together on one platform and readers can discover new shades of cinema, I would say, different forms of cinema that they might have not seen or heard about before.
That's a wonderful way to put it. How did the pandemic affect you? Like, did it allow you more time to, to look into movies and to review them? Did it allow you more time?
Starting the blog.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of your blog and in general, like, did it, let you watch more movies? I mean, given the fact that.
Uh, y- yeah, so once you get interested and once you start writing, you also meet with a lot of new people online or in physical, whatever. But you learn from others, you learn how others are practicing the craft. I mean, there are professional film writers after all, and they have a lot different viewing habits than we do. So I started learning from that, and yes, obviously, if I'm going to write more, I had to a lot more time to viewing movies. So that increased, and that was also another part. I had to balance like how many movies can you watch because there are a lot of other things to take care of. So Yeah, I would say that writing more and more, as I increased my writing output, I had to start watching more and more. And in especially when it comes to film reviews, you also have to be punctual, right? uh, Writing a film review too late, it might not have the same impact as writing it in the first week or on the first day. So all those factors come together, and yeah, I push myself to watch more and more.
Okay, as a critic, like, do you feel that watching a movie and reviewing a movie are two different things?
Yeah, so there is a difference. I mean, I would say that there is not even one way to watch a film. There are a lot of ways to watch films. Most of the people, who go to cinema, just for fun or entertainment, they, I would say, there is some passivity to their viewing experience. So they are there to be entertained. But if you engage in active watching, what you are doing is you are essentially breaking down the film. So you are no longer a passive observer. You get engaged in the narrative, you get engaged in the story, you try to break down the character arcs, that who is the protagonist, what are their flaws, and how are they trying to overcome that, who is the antagonist. So yeah, so yeah, apart, even if you are not reviewing films, I would say there are different ways of watching. For example, when I need to review a film, I need to sit down with a book and pen and keep writing down my thoughts or observations while the movie is going on, which sounds odd. People say, why do you do that? We just watch the film, have popcorn, and the end of story. But that's not how it would work if I were to write a review next day. So yeah, I think there is a difference between, if you are planning to review a film, then yeah, you need to be more careful when you watch. You need to keep a lot of different things in mind, and you are not just breezing through the movie. You are more actively participating.
Okay, so according to you, while watching a movie, what is the most important aspect that you focus on?
So okay, so this is going to vary. Answer for this varies from person to person, but what I usually look for, on my first viewing, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm too active. Like I said earlier, on first screening, I just let everything come in, because it is our tendency. We are curious about the story. We want to know what happens to the character. We don't want to analyze it on first go, and we wouldn't be able to also. So for the first viewing, it is mainly, I'll let it sail through. I just want to know what happens at the end. But when I sit down for a second viewing, I begin to look at, why does a character do certain thing. For example, if we get into character arcs, then there is a reason, there is a motivation, an objective behind every move of our protagonist. So you begin to think about that. Now, I personally am much more interested in writing, not just film writing, but screenwriting, which is, so there are certain rules to that. So you try observing what are the patterns, what are the three acts of the film, and how is the, screenwriter navigating our protagonist through various obstacles. So I'm more interested in narrative. So for on my second viewing, I pay attention to that. But suppose someone is into cinematography, then they'll pay attention to lighting and lenses and everything.
And similarly, I'd like to ask you about, reviewing movies. What is the most important aspect that you would focus on in that case? When you just sit down to review a movie, you just don't want to breeze through it.
Yeah, so even when it comes to film reviews, as it comes to other, last question, there are different kinds of reviews. So the title will always say film review, okay? But not each film review is written in the same way. Someone just wants to highlight what are the major aspects and, breeze over how was the acting, what is the story, how about the music. Whereas some might choose to, go more in depth and make it kind of like a mix of a review and an analysis. So they are, talking about themes. They'll talk about, why does this happen, what is its relation to other films, other work of that director, and such sort of things. So I usually try to, keep my reviews in the, in the center of both these ends, because audiences usually prefer the mainstream parts, like who are the actors, what about the acting performances, what is the entertainment value, how much, what about action sequences and everything. Whereas some people might be into, especially in independent filmmaking, there is a lot more focus on characters, where there is a lot more focus on their internal struggles, internal conflicts. So I try to, create kind of remain in the center and cover both parts in my reviews, which is why as you said before we started, that, they are a lot more detailed because I'm covering both the aspects.
Okay, now as a movie lover, I'd like to ask you this. What's your favorite genre of movies?
My favorite genre is, I'm particularly interested in film realism. So I would say, film realism is usually in drama genre or something of, yeah, around that. I like around the circle of drama, if things are around that.
Yeah. Any movie of yours that you can just watch at any time of the day?
So I think film I can watch anytime. There is one film, Little Miss Sunshine, and I think that is one of my favorite films, and it's comedy along with, sense of family in it. So yeah, that is one of my favorite films that, anytime it's also almost like my pick me up.
Wow. Okay, so as a movie critic, how do you deem a movie fit for watching? I mean, what are the categories, that it should fall under for you as a critic? Like, what makes you think, okay, that this movie is something that one should not miss?
Okay, in an ideal world, you should watch as many movies as possible, good and bad. That is secondary. Like, even to appreciate good films, you need to watch bad films. Only then you have an perspective of, how things work. But given that we have other responsibilities, we have other tasks, I think uh, people, nowadays streaming has made watching movies really easy, so everyone is having their own preferences. Someone likes mainstream cinema, so they are always they'll make sure that they do not miss the big budget movies, they don't miss the action flicks, whereas someone is, let's say, into, more grounded drama films, so they are going to make sure that they catch those films. I think so nowadays, if there is a movie that you think will interest you, I'd say go and watch it. It being good or bad is secondary, it's highly subjective. There are films that people like so much, but some of them do not like, or vice versa. So if you feel like, there is something out there that interests you, maybe a trailer that caught your attention, then yeah, you should go and, watch that. A film review should not be treated as a measure of whether you'll watch it or not. I mean, this is my personal belief. Otherwise, the business is that, you read a review and you decide then. But there are aspects that are good and bad in every movie. I mean, there will be bad aspects in the in the best movie, and vice versa.
And different people might have different opinions of
Yeah, yeah,
things.
yeah. So exactly, people, as I said, people look at films in different ways. I focus on one aspect, someone else will focus on something, and it's really subjective. Defining how good a film is or whether you should watch it or not.
Okay, as a movie critic, how do you see the opinions of professionals? I mean, do you have any personal favorite movie critic as such?
So there have been some famous film critics, like they are almost like celebrities and they have written books and everything. So you want to read their articles, and especially when you are in the initial learning curve. So when I started, I would, try to read reviews about films that I have already watched, so that, I get an idea about, okay, I didn't think about this, I didn't think about that, oh, I thought this and that is not included. So you keep reading others, but then slowly you start turning. But one thing that I make sure, and I think everyone makes sure, is that whatever you are writing stays original. So you do not read anything about that, because you don't want your opinion to be influenced by what others thought. That is really difficult. I mean, if you are, on Instagram, Twitter, reviews do seep in your timeline, and how the film is, but you try your best to maintain an objective opinion.
Okay, a lot of those times, those reviews are sponsored, right? So do you think it's fair for a viewer to be influenced in this manner?
So yeah, that is, I would say, a gray area kind of thing, because if as a reader you might never know that, if it is being sponsored, but Sometimes I would say that when you read a film review, you should not see it as something of a decision. It is not something that is absolute, written in stone, carved in stone. You need to understand that what the author is trying to say. Maybe I always feel this. Even when writing, how would a review read if you remove all the adjectives? You lose all the adjectives, so it is now what you are left with is just the crux of the movie. So about the themes, about the story, there are no good or bad, since you are not describing it. And then if you feel you are interested, then I think you should go and watch the film. Otherwise you can based on your self interest, you can judge who is a good critic and who is not a good critic, or who do you always trust, whose words you find more meaningful and relate to.
Yeah. Okay, so India as a country, people here are crazy about movies. So, what is your take on the cultural impact of films on the society and especially Indian society?
So I would say, Indian cinema has been particularly hit hard because of the pandemic. So I think over the 2 years we had almost negligible new films to watch. If I'm talking about Bollywood, whereas now it's no longer that India just watches Bollywood. It's all, I would say, Hollywood is almost into it, and there are English films, there are foreign films, not English, but in other languages. But so over the pandemic, I think they had a lot to offer, because they were releasing their films, because they also have video on demand, VOD, which is known as VOD. That is another distribution method, which is not particularly powerful in India yet. People don't want to rent movies and pay for them. But new films were coming in. So I would say, over the pandemic, I think we watched a lot of international content. But I think now, if we return to the former glory of Indian cinema, then I think people are going to start watching Indian films too a lot more and appreciate them. Watching is one thing. Everyone watches films. A lot of people watch a lot of films, but appreciating them. The times when Bollywood gave us Pink or Piku or such films, I think they'll be back.
Okay, so this brings me to my next question. What has, according to you, been the impact, of the pandemic on the movie industry and OTT platforms? I mean, how do you think they've benefited from this, or what's your personal opinion about these platforms?
Hmm. Okay, so this is a widely debated topic, and I actually wrote an article about this. Let's forget the pandemic. Then even before that, streaming was on the rise, and it is about two factors: convenience and experience. What film theaters, film cinemas offer you is the experience of watching a film. All right. Apart from the technical, sound mastery and visual projections. Apart from that, it's about watching it with other people that you don't know. And a lot of people have spoken on this, that it's a community experience which is irreplaceable. Whereas remove the experience and enter convenience. You want to watch a film on your couch, eating popcorn out of a tub, and that is also a good idea. But how do you do that? So, and streaming enables you to do that. You need not go out of your house and spend so much on movie tickets and everything. Rather, you can just sit at your house and you can watch whatever you want, as much as you want, for however long you want. So it is all about, it all boils down to this. I think when pandemic happened, I think the experience was not possible because everyone could not get together. So streaming has been, I would say, a boon for everyone, especially cinephiles, because you could also watch all the old movies and everything. You are no longer limited to watching only the new films. So that is a huge bonus for streaming. But yeah, I would say, I prefer watching a film in a theater if it's playing there, because it's all about watching it on the big screen and the experience, which is irreplaceable, by the way, by streaming.
The whole atmosphere, that it just cannot be recreated.
So I mean, when you are streaming a film, you are tempted to use your phone. Someone calls, someone enters the room, you keep changing the volume and everything. So yeah.
Okay, there's one thing I'm interested in. I was looking at your LinkedIn page yesterday. It says something about VMDB. Could you elaborate a little bit about it?
Okay, yeah. So VMDB, the name is not quite attractive. It's Visaj's IMDb kind of a thing, Visaj's movie database. So I was learning Flutter in my summer semester after second year, after fourth sem, and I developed this application where you can store the movies that you have watched, or you can maintain your watch list. So as soon as I would watch a film, I would log it in, and I would enter movie name, director, cast, and all those details, and how many times I have watched the film and everything. If I'm yet to watch the film, it would be classified in watch list, and everything would be maintained that way. And I had connected it to a backend server. So yeah, it was kind of like a little learning experience for me, mainly in the technical sense. But then I discovered Letterbox. So Letterbox is a similar service that allows you to log everything that you watch, maintain lists, maintain a watch list and everything. So yeah, I occasionally use my application also, but I would advise the listeners to start using Letterbox. That is quite interesting.
Okay, so as we've heard a lot of times, no movie can be made without the people who work behind the camera, right? What is your opinion of those? What is your opinion of the things that happen behind the camera? Uh, how important do you think is it to movie making? And do you feel like is it underappreciated?
So what happens behind the camera is the actual talent goes behind there. People appear on screen. That is fine. Those are the actors. They have obviously put in their efforts, and we can see that. But there is, a lot of things, way more things that happen in background than we can even imagine. So I would put it like, the screen becomes like a black box. What we are only seeing is the output, but we have no idea about how it was made. I mean, obviously, if you start learning, if you start going into the details, you start to realize what is the role of different crew members, and what are the different creative professionals involved. But if I talk from an average viewer's point of view, then for them it's all about the movie and nothing that happened behind the stage. So I would say that if you start looking into how films are made, how film direction works, about lenses and how films are captured, production design, then it is a lot more interesting. And as a film writer, I need to do that, because how does a filmmaker execute his or her vision? It is obviously going to be their thought process, and the choices they make, the creative choices they make. So for that, it is better if you go into behind the scenes and see how they thought, how they planned a scene, what all technologies, or with whom they had to collaborate to pull that off. Regarding being underappreciated, I mean, we don't under appreciate them. We more or less forget that someone made it possible to make this beautiful film. So one thing I would say is, I mean, again, no one, I don't think anyone does this, but if you watch a film, you sit through the credits. Okay, yeah, again, it sounds strange. Why would you want to do that? But there are clear reasons to do that, I would say. And once you do, you will understand why you need to do that. A film experience does not end with the last frame. It goes on, and if you sit through the credits, first thing you understand, how everything works. There are different units, there are different locations, there are different crews. So you understand that. Other than that, you can just sit. You are just seated for 5 to 6 minutes, and you can think about what you just saw in the last 120 minutes. So it's in credits there are just names flowing by, and there is a musical score that goes on, nothing else. So you are with yourself, so you remain in your seat and you think about what you just saw, what you just experienced. And I think that will help you appreciate more about the film that went by, and in a way you are appreciating the people who made it by sitting through the credits.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a question here. What are the differences? What are the fundamental differences, according to you, between the Hindi movies that come out, between the Western film industry, and between the other Indian movies that are not made in Hindi? What are the fundamental differences between these, according to you?
Mhm. So differences in terms of like how films are made, I think that is not going to be quite different. I mean, some films are VFX heavy, some films are not VFX heavy. But I think even in Indian cinema now we are seeing that films have a lot of VFX. So a lot happens on digital screens and everything, green screens. But other than that, apart from the technicalities, I think nowadays language barriers are coming down. So a good film made in Hindi is watched worldwide, or a good film made in even in Gujarati is watched worldwide. I mean, I know some Gujarati films that have been very well received. So I would say, with the language barrier gone, subtitles are becoming more and more common. I think there is not much difference, other than obviously there will be a difference in the creative vision behind making a film. So if a Hindi film industry filmmaker is making it in some other language, then they might have some creative, it might be a creative decision on their part, or they think that, that language might have a more impact. But I think that is quite rare. That does not happen quite often.
And if I may, could I ask you about your take on open-ended films such as Inception?
Uh, yeah, so open-ended films are intriguing. They maintain our interest, and as I said, you said after you watch the film, you sit for 10 minutes and think about what you saw, and then open-ended films will have more appeal. Otherwise, if you just leave it, as an open-ended film, then you might feel, oh, I didn't get closure, and closure is very important if you are watching a film. You might not know that on surface, but in your brain you always feel that, I wanted to know what happened, I'm disappointed that I didn't know. I think Andhadhun is also another film that has such an open ending. So that's the thing about open-ended films. They make you think. I have heard a lot of filmmakers who have made open-ended films that they did so that people can think about it. They are leaving it up to you so that you create your ending, what you think is possible, and
They stay with you after you watch the movie, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So I think that's what I like open-ended films. I'm not. I mean, yeah. For first 2 minutes, I'm also like, oh, I wanted to know what happened. But then you start thinking, and with Reddit, there are now so many theories, fan theories, and everything. So that is also interesting.
Okay, so I wanted to know, as a critic, what do you feel about these franchise films that come out? When do you think is a good time for them to stop? I mean, if you look at Star Wars, it's been going on since 1977. I mean, 44 years. That's a long time, right? What is a good point for them to stop? As a critic, what's your opinion about it?
Okay, so see, if I wouldn't say there should be a time for them to stop, as long as they are churning out original stories. I mean, even if you take a 19 a Star Wars film, if you have original ideas, you can make it more adapt to our times. And I think the recent James Bond film, No Time to Die, does that. James Bond is quite an old franchise, but the recent films we have seen that they are more adaptive to the way they are channeling Bond's energy and his behavior. They are more adaptive to modern times. Now, I'm not saying whether that's good or bad, but as long as you are churning out original stories, there will always be an audience for you, and it's a good thing if you are doing that. But why people usually question superhero films and them churning out similar same 3 act structure films is that they are very good for the studios that are making them. I mean, if MCU is widely successful, Disney makes a lot of profits, and not just from the film. They have their theme parks, they have their rides, they sell merchandise and everything. So there is this sense of capitalism seeping into the industry, seeping into cinema, and that's why they keep making sequels and prequels and series, everything. But I think as long as there are original stories to tell, if you are focusing on that, then there's no reason to stop, and I think audiences will also love to have that.
Okay, now as a book lover, the next question is entirely on my part. As a book lover, I feel sometimes that movies don't hold true to the books. If if books are remade into movies, they don't really hold the same value as the book did. You also said that you like reading, right? So how do you feel about it, being both a movie lover and a book lover?
Yeah, so there is a reason why movies cannot completely ape their source material. No matter what, if they are based on a book, or if they are based on some other script, or if they are based on a play, they cannot ape the complete material because it is an entirely different medium. So you asked about books. So a book, when you read, I mean, let's consider Harry Potter, or you can, yeah, we'll stick with Harry Potter. Okay, so it's easy to follow. So in Harry Potter, if you read, then there are a lot of scenes, that are from the perspective of other characters. That they are not from perspective of Harry Potter per se. So we get to know about their lives, we get to know about their characters. But now, if we are to translate everything from that into a film, then I think if you have watched Harry Potter films, then the first two films actually do that, and that's why they are so lengthy, and they are not that, I would say, not up to par with the recent films. Because then they realize that we don't have to consider everyone. If we just consider scenes that are from Harry's perspective, then I think we can tell the story. Now, some say that this is not staying true to the source material. You left out a lot of things. You could not develop other characters other than the main lead characters. But there is a certain limitation to how you can adapt a book into a film. Then again, a book can be more introspective, more contemplative, because you are reading. So that is a slow breeze. Uh, you do not feel the rush for adrenaline like you feel in a movie. Whereas if you were to sit through that long a movie, then you might be bored. So a movie needs to have more action packed sequences, it has to have more visual effects. So they need to make those changes. But there are some films that that they do stay true to the source material. And yeah.
I think The Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, those are some of the greatest films ever adapted. So yeah, that is that. Then the recent film Dune also, that is also adapted, and it stays true, to quite true to the source material.
Okay, one thing. I was going through your blog yesterday and I saw a section about screenwriting there. So, do you plan to pursue screenwriting in the future?
Uh, no, 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 no. So everything. Those screenplays that I wrote, one of them was for a Synapse event, and I didn't even know how to write a screenplay, but I just wrote. It follows none of the rules of screenwriting. It has no structure or format per se. But I just felt like writing, and I wrote that. And there is one more, and yeah. So that is pretty much well formed, because I took an online course, and then I wrote that as a project for that course. But no, it's just out of my passion for storytelling and everything.
Do you ever plan on making reviewing, your full-time career?
Uh, Not right now. I mean, I'm not in that position right now. Neither have I done so much work in that field that I can move to full time commitment to that. I mean, it takes a lot of efforts, and you need to have a huge output, not just on your blog but on social media as well. So I would say that I'm planning to make a switch to that. I'm juggling everything, and yeah.
Okay, so my last and final question for you. Do you have any movie suggestions for the audience?
Movie suggestions. Okay, one I said, Little Miss Sunshine. Do watch that. That is, I would say that is for everyone. No matter which genre you like, everyone will have a good time after watching that. Then my other personal favorites are, one is from Christopher Nolan's filmography. I would say Dunkirk is my, I think Dunkirk is his best work. Uh, that is a war film. For if someone does not know that, it's a war film, and it's told from three perspectives: land, sea, and air. And that is a very good film. Mad Max Fury Road, if you like action, that is an extended chase across a desert, where two parties are chasing, one is in the lead and others are following, and so that's an action packed film, but that is also very good. Otherwise, since I'm interested in writing of films and how the narrative is based, The Dark Knight is also a very good example. So I think that is one of the best written films that I watched. The character arc of Batman, Joker, and Harvey Dent. So watch The Dark Knight for how Christopher Nolan and his brother wrote that film. uh, yeah, so I think everyone would have heard about them. I mean, I can go into independent filmmaking, but people wouldn't know about that. So, okay, let me say the recent Best Picture winner, Nomadland. So, you would have heard about Nomadland because it won an Oscar, but if you know Nomadland, then you should also watch The Tree of Life, which is a Terrence Malick film, and it is also quite similar in visual structure. Terrence Malick films are, they are poetic cinema, as we call them. So if you like Nomadland and if someone has watched Nomadland, then they should try The Tree of Life, which is similar in visual architecture of film. Yeah, so those are some film recommendations. But again, watch whatever you like. There are no good or bad films. There is nothing like, this is the best ever made. What you like is the best film ever made.
I think that's the end of our segment. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you to Radio Club for inviting me. Yeah.